In this presentation, we're going to review qualities that make a good paper title. First, let's look at the elements of a title. A title must include a main topic of the paper, as well as the focal point. It should include a side of the paper, too, if it's persuasive or argumentative instead of expository. A thoughtful writer looks to the thesis for these elements and adds interest to the title. Let's look at this and see if this title has those elements. First, we'll look at the thesis, and then we'll look at the title itself. Illegal Mexican immigrants serve as a helping hand in the job market, promote diversity, test the U.S. government, and demonstrate valuable ethics. Now, with all of those descriptors, would the title of illegal immigrants, would it be a good title, or would it be a bad title? Our answer is obviously bad. Illegal immigrants, what on earth does that actually describe? It only reflects the overall topic. It's a very broad topic. But what about illegal immigrants? That title doesn't reflect anything about whether this writer is taking a positive look, a negative look, or a totally different perspective. Who knows what this writer is all about? Let's look at another one. So we have the same thesis statement here. Let's look at this title, Supporting Illegal Mexican Immigration in the U.S. What do you think? Is this a good title or is it a bad title? Does it have the elements of the topic? Does it focus? And if it's persuasive, is it revealing a side? And the last component is, does it include interest? Well, comparatively, we would have to say that this is a good title, or at least it's a better title. Supporting clearly indicates a side, and Mexican immigration specifies what group we are focusing upon. So I would probably say that that would be a better title. It's at least a good start. We'll still need to do some work. This title integrates something that a lot of students will have to do. They will be given a work of art or an essay, a work by someone, and the student has to respond to that item. So in this example, William Hogarth is an artist who was making a political statement and trying to pass legislation banning the sale of gin in the public streets during the 1700s. So this thesis statement is very clear and to the point. Does the title match it? William Hogarth's Gin Lane portrays the destruction of motherhood when women abuse gin. The title is William Hogarth's Gin Lane. What do you think? Is this a good or a bad title? I would hope you would say bad. This title only reflects the work being studied. What on earth is the focus? Plus, William Hogarth is that artist's name, and Gin Lane is that artist's work of art's title, but we don't have any other context beyond that. You know, William Hogarth created that title of Gin Lane. Where's the focus? What are we studying here? What about this title? Same thesis, new title. Perceptions of Motherhood through William Hogarth's Gin Lane. Does it have the topic? Does it have focus? Does it have interest? I would say, again, we have one that is good, or at least it's better than the last one. Perceptions of Motherhood at least shows or reflects the concept that's going to be studied in the paper. And so if I were to run across this title in a library database, I would at least understand what is being discussed topically, which would be William Hogarth's Gin Lane. And then I would also understand that focus on the ideas of motherhood, those perceptions of motherhood. That's a really interesting phrase. I would probably keep reading if that's what my paper was related to. The only other element that is missing here is interest. And while I think perceptions of motherhood, it's kind of a quizzical thing. Is it a good perception? Is it a bad perception? It's intriguing to me, but I don't know that it's a real attention grabber by any means. But does everything have to be flashy and attention grabby? Not necessarily. So this title would be a really good start, but we could probably invent a little bit of interest in it. Let's try one more example. The thesis. Parents must talk with teens about sex earlier than high school. It's a pretty simple declarative sentence, but you can also see that it is a persuasive topic. Must talk with teens, and when. It's all in there. So this title, does it reflect the focus? Does it reflect the topic? Is it interesting? The title is Let's Talk About Sex. Now some of you are immediately going into the salt and pepper days, and you would be right. But is this a good or a bad title? I would hope that you would see that this is a bad title. The topic of sex is clear, but who exactly is talking? And with whom? And why are they talking about this? And the writer has ripped off Salt and Pepper. Some of you must have been a little offended that it wasn't even in quotes or anything. How rude. So let's talk about this title. Is it good or bad? Let's talk about sex, a parent's guide to addressing the sex talk. Let's go through the elements again. What is the topic? Is the focus reflected? Is there a side? And is there interest? I would hope that you would think this is a good title. This time we have put quotation marks around let's talk about sex. So we're at least showing that it is something related to pop culture or a concept that others have talked about. Even if we don't know that it's Salt and Pepper, hey, at least we've quoted it. A parent's guide to addressing the sex talk is very specific about the topic and the focus. And the only thing that I could think is missing here is maybe the side. It's very interesting. But if we don't know really whether it's going to be a pro-sex talk or a pro-abstinence talk or what angle we're talking about, then that might be a problem. But the truth is that we don't have that reflected in the thesis either. So we want to think through, okay, who's our audience? Who are we trying to attract to start talking about sex with their teens? And how do we want to approach that topic? This is pretty darn interesting, isn't it? It has its topic, it has its focus, it has interest. Another element to discuss when we're talking titles would be capitalization. Titles are capitalized according to the documentation styles guidelines. So whether you're using MLA or APA or others, you're going to use the rules that are dictated by that documentation style. If a documentation style is not specified, then you should use basic grammar rules, and any good grammar book can give you those basic rules. But as a general guideline, the two bullets in the middle show us that major words, proper nouns, verbs, and most adjectives and adverbs are capitalized. Just think about it. If it's an important word, go on ahead and capitalize it. This also includes smaller words like is and are, because they're verbs. And depending upon the role of the preposition, it might be capitalized. And that's, again, where you have to look at your style. Modern Language Association might say, capitalize it this way, and APA might say capitalize it that way. I've offered more guidance in our textbooks for you to look up these rules. The final item is punctuation. A title is not a sentence, so titles never include a period at the end. However, the punctuation that they could include could be a variety of things. The most common one would be a question mark, especially if the title asks a question or poses a question. But another most commonly used element would be a colon for a subtitle. So you can see in the examples here, the first title is very straightforward, it's very declarative, but it's not a complete sentence. There's no period at the end. Students must attend student activity period events. Short, to the point, no period at the end. Let's look at the second title. Here's where we have the idea of a title and a subtitle. Who wants to vote? 20-somethings change politics. This concept is split into two, and the way that you divide those two concepts is with a colon. Number 3, why does mommy drink? A child's perspective on alcoholism. Now we could very easily change that from a semicolon into a question mark if we wanted to, in order to demonstrate that question. And the final example is an honest question. What makes a good paper title? And that's what we've been talking about here. So you can see the importance of a question mark. For more information about the pages and the textbooks that we're using for this presentation, please see the following resources.